welcome back to the studio sessions. My name is Brooke, and we talk about movies every week. Ones we love, ones we don't love, why we do or do not love them, and making movies. So, to kick off this week, here are some studio notes. Okay, first studio note is a little trend I'm seeing that is interesting in the climate of the film industry right now. So, there has always been the fan made like concept trailers, right? Or posters or things like that pop up on the internet and you kind of look at and go, I don't know. Now, because of all of the movies being announced, I've had to second guess myself on if something is real or not. Because there have been times where I've been wrong both ways, where I thought it was real, turned out it wasn't, or I didn't believe it, I didn't think it was real, turned out it was. And so I just think that's been an interesting dynamic within this whole climate, has been like the incredible amount of difficulty it now is to better discern whether the concept trailers are real or not. And I think that just goes to show where Hollywood is, like where things are right now, because I saw the Shrek 5 announcement. First was like, no, no. Then it turned out to be real. So, just is an interesting note to think about. The second note is that we are, just like I thought, seeing movies become more events again. You're seeing theaters embrace and jump into and build the event feeling around movies rather than just the casual going to a movie. So you have them putting Scary Movie, the first one, back in the theaters alongside Scary Movie 6. You have Christopher Nolan's movie, The Odyssey, being put in IMAX. Things like that are increasing as I anticipated. And I think that combined with the bank on IP we're using right now is probably what's responsible for the level of boost in the box office. I also think there's been such a push for bringing movies back that the engagement on social media with actors, filmmakers, has probably contributed to it also. Social media has grown in this, and I think that will only be a benefit. And yeah, so it's interesting to see. And the third topic I want to touch on really quick is AI. Conversations around AI have been interesting. Most people either love it or hate it. They're either encouraging it as a tool and all that it helps make capable, or the flip side of that is the concern over it taking over jobs and how that might mass scale impact the industry. And I think probably where I land and where I think there is most reality is maybe somewhere in the middle, leaning towards light AI use rather than heavier AI use. I think there are certain aspects of it that technology is just amazing, and technology continues to grow and increase and develop. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I do think we want to be careful how we integrate it into what we do. Yes, there's the whole job security question, but also it just takes the human out of it. And in a creative industry, you need the human in it. It is not the same something created by AI versus something created by a human tangibly. That's not to say people can't use AI to create. That does happen, and when you are using that as a tool in that way, there's definitely a lot of room for you're putting your own style, you're putting your own flavor to it, you are changing what they would generically create. And so it does feel a little more human. But at the same time, in some of the key aspects in the film industry, like editing, like writing, those types of things are going to need the human aspect to a greater level. And so you have to be conscious of how you use those things. And I think we've only just started to get to that part of the conversation after all of the heated back and forth. I think that fog is finally starting to lift, and people are like, okay, well, what does correctly using this look like then? And so it can be an actual conversation now, I think, where people can get to a point where we're discovering what's the best way to actually use this versus do we use it at all or not. And so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I think it'll progress probably very quickly as technology tends to do. So by this time, 6 months from now, a year from now, this conversation will look very different. I think definitely something to keep an eye on. And I think there is a line between it as a tool, it being a threat, and what it means for filmmaking in particular and how that might progress. I I tend to be a middle of the road, like there's a balanced way to use these things type of gal, where I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, use it intentionally and with caution, but you don't have to throw it out completely. I think it has its role. You just have to tell it what that is and use it intentionally. So, yeah, that's that. And those are this week's studio notes. So, this week, I wanted to take the opportunity to wrap up our How Films Are Made series. I had so much fun making this series, going through the different stages of filmmaking and taking it all the way from development through distribution and everything in between, talking in nitty gritty detail about it. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. And so I wanted to wrap things up by talking about the top 5 things that general audiences don't talk about or don't get told about filmmaking. So many filmmakers start as movie fans. That's why we're even interested, because we love watching movies and we are interested in making a really cool movie. And before you make your first film, there's a lot of things to think about, and there's a lot of lessons that are left to learn along the way, which is normal. But there's some key things that I think help you to know as early in the process as you can understand them. So these 5 things kind of help summarize some of the highlights from the series that really help kickstart you into making a film, into taking this series and making your movie. And so the first one is a reminder, an encouragement, and just a warning that making a movie is not one creative decision. It is thousands. Every bit of a film can change within the filmmaking process. From start to finish, it can look massively different. And that involves a lot of decision making. That involves a lot of adaptation. That involves a lot of making decisions as you go rather than getting so stuck in the decisions you made originally. And so just being prepared for that and knowing that that's okay. If you have to make a new decision on something, it's not the end of the film. You can do that and still do this well. And it doesn't mean you failed somehow in the process before then. Those things happen, and that's okay. You can have a script that changes, casting changes, locations changing, editing changing. eh, Audience expectations can adapt in a way, and your understanding of it can adapt in a way that can significantly impact the film. So, those things happen, and you want to just go with them as they come, make the best decision you can. And the main idea of this one is the movie you start with is rarely the movie you end with. And that's usually a good thing. Number two is the hardest part is often getting a movie made, not filming it. So everyone has an idea for a movie. There are a lot of aspiring filmmakers and a lot of people with ideas. Actually executing that and making the film is rare. To push through that process, to push through the obstacles you get thrown is rare. And to contend with development, financing, partnerships, timing of everything, that's not easy. And how those things happen matter and can affect whether you make it through the filmmaking process. Why so many films end up not actually getting made is because of the stall that can happen in some of the earlier stages of the process that then lead into just not getting to the point of actually maybe even filming anything. Usually it gets stalled in the, oh, it's just not developed enough, or we can't get enough ground financially to get enough resources, can't get enough backing, things like that. We can't figure out timing or scheduling. Those are usually where the hangups happen. Number three is that every department is storytelling. You think of the director as the storyteller, right? They're the head storyteller of the film. They're the leader. They are making the creative decisions. Well, there's a whole lot of different aspects of storytelling happening in a film. You are telling a story through how you have the set dressed. You're telling the story of this is a 1850s home. This is a 2000s home. This is a 70s home. And that can be some films first introduction into the world of the film before you ever even see an actor, with cinematic shots of the set that tell like, oh, this is where it's taking place. Okay. And that's a huge part of the storytelling. How somebody's hair is done can tell a lot about their character before they ever speak a word. How somebody is dressed. Those decisions are all a part of telling the story and very, very important parts of telling the story. If those things are off, the story just doesn't make sense. It is going to jump off the screen that that does not jive with everything else that you're saying. And so those are really, really important. And editing is storytelling. How you're structuring things, how the story flows through the film. That's massive. Music, the sound, how somebody is auditorily experiencing the film can massively change the feeling of the film. Music is extremely emotionally impactful and can change the tone of a scene just on its own without ever changing anything else about the scene. And so filmmaking is thousands of people making choices to how to tell that one story. Number four is a finished film kind of hides the struggles that happened behind it. So you have the pretty red carpet, the premiere of the film, you have the engaging trailer, you have the finished product. and that doesn't tell you the story of how many times the script was rewritten, the different aspects of the films that changed 10 million times before the final product. Doesn't tell you how personality dynamics functioned on set or in pre and post production. Those just aren't things that you're going to see in the normal scope of experiencing a film unless you were there making the film. And so those things can kind of end up hiding in the background when really that can be a very big impact on how you experience making the film and how successful you can be at that process of making the film, because you got to know how to navigate those things. Number 5, I think, is most important for today, and that is that the future of filmmaking is changing. So for us starting our filmmaking journeys in this era of filmmaking, where you have AI, where you have studio systems that are not doing very well, and independent filmmaking is massively increasing. You have different distribution models and smaller productions doing a whole lot more. It looks different. It looks different than the studio system of the 50s. It looks different than the height of the studios in the 90s and 2000s, where it was a pretty closed system and like you had to know people. And very rarely did non-studio films do as massive as studio films. It changes how you would approach making a movie now. You think about a decent amount of the phases of filmmaking a little differently. There's some different things to take into consideration as far as funding, distribution, marketing. Those things all would be approached in a much different way and are continuing to evolve. We don't know how AI is going to change some of those things. We don't know how social media is going to change and the impact that that's having on marketing. So, being along for the ride is really important. Keeping yourself updated on these things is really important. And being open to those changes is going to be important for doing that successfully. I wanted to do this series because I love movies. And when you watch a movie, you see all of the magic that happens. But only if you're a film nerd like me do you watch the behind the scenes things that tell you how that magic is made. And so I wanted to try to gather everything I've learned about how that magic is made into a series to help others who also love movies and want to make one. Whether it's your first one or you've made one like I have, but you're working on another or wanting to work on another, whether you're playing with the idea of making a film, if you could do it, what it entails, things like that. There's a lot to think about. And I wanted to kind of gather all of my understanding and knowledge into one series. So I hope this is helpful for those of you that not just love movies, but love making films and want to make films. I think there's a lot to continue to learn, but I hope this gives you a good start to kick off to make your own. If you would like to see my first film, Like a Butterfly, you can find the link in the description box. And I hope you enjoy it if you watch it. I gave a little bit of an update on my next project in the last episode. If you didn't catch it, go ahead and go listen to that and stay tuned for updates on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Give this a like, share it with your favorite film nerd buddy, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. The Studio Sessions is a Butterfly Entertainment production. You can keep up with all of our podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and other projects on our Instagram page. We are at Butterfly Entertainment Group. Thanks for listening.